What's up, my fellow lionesses and lions? Welcome to the Project Lioness podcast, where we are here to disrupt the mainstream narrative when it comes to health, holism, and human consciousness. We are here to share bold truths about health and life from a female perspective. This episode is brought to you by our team, Inspire Co., where we stand for your health being inspired by choice rather than being inhibited by chance. Thank you for being here and joining in on these raw, real, and powerful conversations. We hope our show brings you inspiration and empowerment to overcome challenges, reclaim your life, and ultimately pursue your mission with power, purpose, and play. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Project Lioness podcast. This is your host, Dr. Mel. In today's episode, I am joined by an amazing woman, Sarah Branion, and her and I are really excited to have this conversation with y'all. But before we dive into the world of birth and what that means, let's talk a little bit more about Sarah and the gifts that she brings to this planet. So Sarah witnesses and captures the most profound moments in families' lives as a Twin Cities birth photographer and birth doula. Bringing together over a decade of birth work experience, the process of preparing for and then giving birth can be one of the most transformational experiences in someone's life, no doubt. Supporting and holding space for those important journeys is what brings passion to Sarah's work. Her extensive background as a certified professional labor and postpartum doula means that she moves seamlessly through birth spaces, understanding the rhythm and flow of labor while remaining unobtrusive while behind the camera. As an experienced gestational carrier herself, Sarah is passionate about supporting and photographing families growing after loss, infertility, and through surrogacy and IVF, bringing deep and personal understanding to these unique journeys. She specializes in capturing the complex emotions and connections that make these births particularly meaningful. So welcome, Sarah, to the podcast. So grateful you could join us today.
Thanks. So nice to be here.
Yes. So for our audience and listeners, I always like to share why I brought on our guests and how we connected. Sarah and I were actually at a professional networking meeting. Gosh, I don't know, was that two months ago? I feel like time is
Sounds
doing
right. Yeah.
Interesting things. And her and I just started jamming on birth and doula and all the things in between birth and, women getting pregnant and being pregnant and sleep. And, a lot of our audience are moms who listen and people who have had kids who are getting pregnant, working on a fertility journey. So I thought it would be absolutely amazing to bring you on. Because her and I, you guys, we could have talked for hours. And I was like, I need to bring you on the show and we need to have these conversations so that other people can hear it. So thank you, Sarah, for just shedding your gifts on the planet. And if there's anything else you want to add to your bio, otherwise, I know one of the things we like to do in Project Lioness is hear, like, what is your journey and story in getting into the world of birth?
Yeah, well, I think we could talk all night. So I'm glad you are in charge of keeping time.
Yes.
That's helpful. That's helpful for me. Honestly, I was somebody that grew up knowing I wanted to have a family, and I really thought being pregnant and giving birth was going to be wild. I'm somebody that really wants to experience the breadth and depth of life. And so when I was getting ready for birth, I really felt like I wanted to prepare for it as as natural of an experience as I could, meaning I wanted to give birth under the trees in the woods if I could.
Yes.
In Denver,
Yep.
What that meant was hiring a doula and a midwife.
Of course.
And just preparing for birth, I was inundated with stories and tropes about what birth would and would not be like for me, what kind of pain I would and would not be able to handle, what it meant if I used an epidural, what it meant if I went natural. Our whole culture has values based on that. I mean, it was just wild. Mm-hmm. So when I gave birth and I ended up being one of the best days of my life, it was really shocking to a lot of people. And so I thought there was something there. My doula, who was a best friend at the time, was instrumental in that entire experience. My husband jokes that really the best thing she did was give him a 20-minute break to go to the bathroom and get a turkey sandwich. Like that was the best thing she could have done. And now I know that doulas are highly professional, credentialed, educated, experienced. They know so much about birth and labor, but sometimes it's just having another set of hands and somebody to witness. So I just fell in love and I left a different career. I have a master's degree in something totally different. 14 years in a different field. I was running my own consulting business. I was hopping between different nonprofits doing executive director work. And it was just this different field, but I felt called to it like a lot of doulas do. And I haven't really looked back since.
That's lovely. One thing I want to highlight that you mentioned was the concept of like both partners in the experience being supported. And I think a lot of people, as you said, there's these programs and things that we learn about how we think the birth process should be or what a doula does. And I'd love for you to expand on that, because that's a big thing I see with the women who come into my world is they have these misconceptions of like what a doula actually does, not just for the person who's pregnant, but also the partner, right? So I'd love your expertise and your, what are some of the programs that you see in people's minds that I think as a doula, I'm sure there's some breaking down of those illusions. I'm curious your perspective on that.
Yeah, I hear this all the time as I interview prospective families. They are almost apologetic if they have a plan to use an epidural. They are almost apologetic if they would like to or need to schedule a C-section or even be in a hospital. People have a misconception that doulas only support like an unmedicated home birth. And we do, but we also support everything in between. Our job is threefold. It's emotional support, informational support, and physical support. Now, those look a lot of ways, and it spans the entire pregnancy and into postpartum. And for sure, we shine, in that overnight labor, active labor, hip squeeze moment. That's when you think of us the most. But it is a lot of preparing people and getting them ready and getting them the right team around them so that when we get to birth, it can unfold in the way that they imagined. And people feel safety and people feel like good birth happens everywhere. It happens at home, it happens at birth centers, and it happens in hospitals. And it's actually our job to facilitate communication with their care team. We are bridge builders in that way. And we're also there to help the family, the couple. A lot of times, we also have single parents by choice, is to facilitate and draw out what they want out of their birth, which is often unknown when people get pregnant.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And as a pediatric chiropractor, one of the big things we learned in our training is also learning the role of each of these really important people that step into the birth experience, including midwives and doulas, regardless of how or where you choose to give birth. The importance of having that team around you allows such a safety in the nervous system, as you said, to not surrender, but really trust the experience, knowing that you're being advocated for. Because my guess, and I'm sure you can speak to this, when someone is in that birth state, there's different hormones being released and the brain can function a little differently, right? There's different hormones cascading through the body and through the brain. So anything that you've seen in that, like as a doula firsthand, having that support versus people who maybe the first go around they didn't, and then they hired you the second time. I'm curious if there's anything you've seen there, and that cascade that sometimes can feel overwhelming for people giving birth, what that looks like having you by their side.
Yeah, that makes me think of two things. One, we put way too much pressure on partners.
Yeah.
We expect that they are the birth coach, which inherently means they know more than the players, right? A coach, you hire a coach because they've got a ton of experience, they've got knowledge and wisdom, and truly a birth partner is going through it for the first time and they're emotionally invested.
Absolutely.
It is not fair to assume or project that a lot of times the partners are males, that these men know how to tell you what's next in the phases of labor, coach you into the most effective, efficient, optimal position for you and baby, that they simultaneously can plan what the next phase is going to be, that they simultaneously can ask the good clarifying questions of the birth professionals that are, the medical providers in the room. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, a doula is there to make partners look good.
I love that.
because we're there to remove a lot of that, right?
Yes.
It's my job to normalize. It's my job to get to know the family and the partners and the birthing person's wishes, and for them to be able to say what is important to them in a planned, calm, in-home prenatal meeting.
Yeah.
The time to learn about and decide your choices is not in the middle of the night, in the middle of active labor, hearing about a choice for the first time and trying to access our frontal lobe. It's actually not possible in birth to do that.
Yep.
And then to expect a partner to do that, who may have been up all night, is concerned about their partner. It's a lot. And so if we can remove some of that, we can hold the space, we can hold the information. Now, we're never going to make decisions for people, but it would be something like a provider saying, are you ready for an epidural? Mm-hmm. And for me as the doula to look at the partner who's often deer in the headlights,
right,
to say, in the prenatal, we discussed that her preference was X, Y, and Z around the epidural. Do you think that's still true? And they can be like, yes, honey, you said this. Is that what you want? And then in the end of the day, the partner will speak for the birthing person, but I don't. It's my job to kind of jog their memory or help them ask the questions that they already identified would be important to them.
Yeah. I knew there was a reason why I brought you on this podcast. That was so gold. And, to bridge the gap for our listeners, we have a lot of, again, people who are interested in just the birthing process, or people who are, like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, trying to get pregnant, or they work with people. We have a lot of professionals who listen to this, especially chiropractors and people in that world. And I think bridging that gap, like you said, to the brain, because when you're in that state, like the birth trance, you don't have as much access to the executive center. And that's intelligent, right? We're supposed to be like super deeply in our body. And that's where you and I were jamming so much at the networking meeting, of like the intelligence of what's happening. And when you can really rest easy when someone's there to advocate for you and kind of be your second brain, that I think can help the birth process along. At least what I've seen is just even knowing that you can have those people on your team, no matter what choices you're making, they can be like your second brain, so that you can feel safe in your body to allow the birth process to happen in a more, I don't want to say effortless, because birth is a wild experience in and of itself, or it can be, but just to be in community, the way that I think we used to give birth on the planet, right? So
we used to. Yeah, that's for sure. And doulas are there to help the partner look good, of course, but also to remove some of the caretaking that I see women all the time in labor. They are in labor and they'll look over at me and say, can you make sure my wife has had her breakfast? And I'm like, yes, but you were in the middle of birth. Like, let me handle that. And so I've learned to talk about that prenatally, is that the birthing person should be able to focus on birthing. Their job is to go inward, dilate, soften, surrender. That's their whole job. The partner's job is to be their emotional center.
Yeah.
It's a soft place to lay a head. It is the hands that the birthing person most wants on their body. It is somebody just to say, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
If they then also think about basic needs, like, when did my partner eat or drink or void or sleep last? Like, that's great. That's bonus points. But otherwise, doulas do that. We think about that. But I'm also thinking about partner's needs, because if I am asking him, when do you need coffee? I'm going to get a turkey sandwich. Do you want one? Then that birthing person can remove the caretaking role that they have in their couple dynamic, because it's often very strange for the birthing person to set that down for a couple days, right? Yeah. We are so used to, as women and motherly people and birthing people in our society, we caretake.
Yes.
And even during birth, I see it. And so if doulas can caretake basic needs of them and their partners, that's a great use of having a doula too, because then, everybody's handled. And also, I mean, we caretake of children and dogs in early labor too. We're not the babysitters, but we are facilitating, okay, it's time for childcare. It's time to get the dog over to doggy daycare. We're figuring out the logistics of that too. We're also, at a home birth, washing your towels and making sure your house looks like a birth never happened.
Yeah.
So besides all the amazing optimal positioning and nerding out on how a baby gets out of there,
right, we
also just take care of what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, you were definitely reading my mind on what I was going to mention too, which is this idea in our culture of kind of sometimes being a martyr or the people pleasing, where sometimes it's hard to ask for help and surrender and delegate the things that one is already part of your role and stepping into that as a doula. But I find some people, especially women that I'll work with, they have a really hard time of letting go of that control, even if it is the little things, not just control in their body. Because as you said, birth is a softening and an inward, which is definitely a feminine experience, but also knowing that there's someone else maybe coming into your home or wherever you're giving birth, and learning how to relinquish that control of like, hey, I'm going to delegate that to you so I don't have to think about it. And I can just do my one job, which is to create a birth. And I think that's beyond birth. I see a lot of people struggle with that, wanting to let go of control and delegating things and not feeling like they're a burden, even though they're carrying this infant inside of them, and they've created this infant. Like, hello, your body's been doing a lot of work over the last, 9 to 10 months, right? So you were reading my mind on that.
Yeah. And that's why doulas, we create a relationship far ahead of labor starting, because labor is a very vulnerable time. It can be very empowering. It can be fast. It can be long and arduous. It's hard to know what it is. So we get to know our folks way ahead of time. We often, as doulas, are doing multiple virtual visits, multiple home visits, trying to understand their goals and to educate along the way, and to help make sure they're in a birthing location and with a provider group that is reflecting their goals for birth. Yeah. When you set up the right team for you, including chiropractors, by the way, I wish everybody was just required to see a great perinatal chiropractor when they were pregnant. Right. I'm definitely pushing it. When you have a great team around you, the need for advocacy goes way down. And people talk a lot about that when they hire me. They want a birth advocate. And I have to let them know, really, if you're advocating while you're in labor, you're likely not in the right place. It should be a relationship built over time with your providers, where you are explaining how you want to be taken care of and what health concerns you have and all of that. And your providers should either say, yes, we've got you, or I can't provide that. And here's a different place to go. That's the way it should go. If you're finding yourself really needing some advocacy in the moment of birth, we have missed a chance as the community and your group of providers to steer you to somebody that will support you.
Yeah, it's that prevention and creating that predictability and knowing that you're even an option. I've had a lot of people come into my practice where they didn't even realize that a doula or a midwife was an option. They thought, hey, this is just how it is in the culture, and I guess that's what I do. And they don't even realize they have options, which is why I wanted to bring you on to be like, hello, everyone. I think it's getting out there a little bit more mainstream, but I still have people to this day who didn't even realize the first birth that they could have someone like a doula, like you. And so the second time around, they're like, okay, I want to do this differently. And it's totally a game changer. And I think
that's right.
It's my mission to create awareness around these things. And then you have more autonomy, right? You have options. You have people that know certain connections in the community that maybe you never would have thought about, certain locations or certain professionals that, again, we don't even know our options, right?
Yeah, just the referral list alone from a great doula is priceless, because we have found folks over time that have worked with dozens of our clients, or we go to ourselves, or we've met and we align on values and practice and that kind of thing. And it is so overwhelming when you first become pregnant to try to find the right, hospital or birth center or home-based midwife. And then even within those choices to find the right provider. And then and then people forget we should probably take a class and learn about this. How does this actually happen? People forget they should probably prepare their body.
Yep.
People forget that they should probably prepare their spirit, their identity shift that's about to come. There's just so many things. Their sleep is going to be interrupted. They forget all of those things. And a doula kind of helps you along that timeline of checking in on you. Like, all right, we're early pregnancy. What are you thinking about? What are you scared about? What resources do you need? And then we always have a few agenda items that we think people usually are thinking or preparing at that time. And we meet people where they are. Some people are very prepared by the time they meet us. And some people come to an interview with a doula and they say, I don't really know what a doula is.
Right.
And my spouse is kind of against this idea, but here we are. Can you tell us what you do? And wherever you are is just fine.
Yeah. I know you and I were talking before we hit record on the importance of having doulas in like life transitions, because birth is a metamorphosis. You will never be the same after you give birth from an identity perspective, from a spiritual perspective. And doulas do such an amazing job at those life transitions. And I've joked too that, I don't think it should be a joke, but I know that there's different things like death doulas now that exist, and just big life transitions. I think like career doulas. I like to refer to myself as like the consciousness doula. If you're shedding old beliefs and you're creating new beliefs and identities, having that person who is of support and creating a container for you to evolve, like a caterpillar in a cocoon that metamorphosizes into a butterfly. It's so important, and not do it alone, right?
Yeah. I've heard of a divorce doula.
Yes, you said divorce doula. That's great.
Yeah. I have an old cheer buddy. He and I were on a cheer team, an adult charity cheer team together. And he is a trans doula to help people through their transitions, their medical transitions. And what better time to have a doula is when you're going through a legit big physical, mental, spiritual transformation, to have somebody that's been there before hundreds of times, or they've had to navigate this road before, either themselves or with clients. It's really incredible. And I myself, as a past carrier, a gestational carrier, I do companion and IVF doula work, where I really love working with families growing through surrogacy, because that itself is a whole nother trip. So it's not just the birth we're preparing for. It's actually navigating the conversations around birth preferences. When we have a birthing person, a carrier who is going to birth the baby and truly has autonomy over birth preferences, but the baby is not hers. Yeah. And so there's a family that does care, that wants to be there, and we're navigating all of these different experiences. It's wonderful. That's one of my favorite kinds of clients, is working with surrogacy families and those growing in that way. It can be really scary. It can, there's a lot of grief and loss if you are to that point. Yeah. And so it's a tender place to work, but I think it's really meaningful. We also have doulas. I do this from time to time, that are companion care doulas that will attend any gynecological experience that we go through, so you don't have to go alone. Like, I'm somebody who suffers with endometriosis, and I really wish I had a doula at every single appointment, not just to do the whole hand holding, but to also help me process, did I hear that right? Yes. That was a lot of information. Yes. Did I ask the questions I said I was going to ask of my surgeon? You know, it's those moments. And a lot of us have those people in our life. But if you don't, and if it's a private matter and you'd rather have somebody else, a professional who's used to it, doulas really are versatile in that way.
Yeah. And I think they can create that unbiased experience, you know, because as you were saying in the birth process, you want your partner to be your partner, not your coach. And I think that unbiased, non-judgmental perspective is huge, especially with, meetings or appointments like that, where there can be so much information and you're so in your emotional brain that you can't even capture. I want to go back to your experience, though, being a gestational carrier, because I've only met a few people who have had that experience. If there's anything else you want to share on that, because I think that's a very specific niche of someone who's gone through that experience and then is also a doula for people. Like, I think that's such a very unique niche that I haven't heard a lot of. And I don't think our listeners have heard a lot of either.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. It was one of the best things I've ever done with my life. Again, back to the breadth and depth of life. It was also really tough. Like, surrogacies can be difficult. It is foreign DNA to your body because there's either a donated egg or donated sperm or just not the DNA your body's used to. Right. Our body's very wise. It actually will fight off and try to kill anything that it hasn't seen many times before, if you can pick up my drift. So when you are a surrogate and you are, you have the transfer of an embryo of DNA that your body's not used to, it is a difficult pregnancy. And so I didn't really realize all of that till the end. My body was hanging out, and then it got hard at the end. I ended up having a C-section that I definitely didn't want. But everything that happens in my life really has clear spiritual undertones for me. And immediately when I kind of came to after surgery and my anesthesiologist was checking on me and he knew I didn't want the C-section, he knew it was really hard for me. And, he held my hand, this man I'd never met. And he said, "You're a doula, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How many of your clients have C-sections?" And I said, luckily my numbers are low. Little shout out to doulas. We really improve C-section numbers, but across the nation, 30 to 40% of births are C-sections. And, he said, "Well, you're going to help a lot of people by knowing what it's really like." And I was like, true. And now I'm able to look back, and I have 2 girls of my own, and I've had 3 very different birth experiences. And the honor of carrying a baby for somebody else just feels like a no-brainer. Like, people will say to me, like, "That's such a huge gift. I can't believe you've done it." And I'm like, if I have a uterus that works, and I happen to be lucky enough to have my own children biologically, and there are just a huge backlog of families that cannot, why would I not use my uterus? It's just, I don't know. It's just such a deal breaker. And honestly, it's something I always thought would be fun. It might be all the Hallmark movies we watched as kids, but my sister and I agreed, like when we were little, we're like, hey, if we ever can't have babies, either one of us, we will be a surrogate for each other. I knew that from a little kid. It was just all in the back of my head. It was like, we just do this for our family. And then when she was able to have her own children and I was too, it seemed like a no-brainer when I realized just the huge backlog. The waiting list is immense for surrogacy. So it was definitely an easy call to make.
Yeah, it seems like it's one of your just knowing in your soul that you've known for a long, long time, and how touching of that surgeon. I feel like that bedside manner is, we could use more of that. I'll just say that.
It's great.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
I've had a lot of good experiences. I feel like people understand the veil of birth is really spiritual and really special and really tender. And most people involved with birth are really speaking powerfully into people in that moment. And that's why birth is one of or the most sacred and profound transformations a person will go through. And of course, anybody witnessing it goes through that transformation, but the birthing person herself is just never going to be the same. And it can be hard. It can be dark. There are some really difficult outcomes that will change you forever. And luckily, most births end up as just a lovely, meaningful, life-changing, generational changing experience. And to be part of it and get paid is that's pretty lucky.
Doesn't even feel like
I feel like somebody's gonna come on,
right?
They're gonna figure it out and be like, wait a minute, we shouldn't be paying you for that. It's too cool.
I think that's when you know you're on purpose, right? Is when it doesn't feel like work and you're like, wait, I get paid to do this? This is so cool.
Yeah. It does feel like work when it's 4 a.m. and I'm driving 45 minutes in the middle of the night. And then I live with a sleeping bag in my car because I do often sleep in my car. And those moments, it feels like work. But never when I'm with my clients does it feel like work.
Yeah. It takes a special someone to, be attuned to when you know one of your clients is going to go into labor soon, to be attuned to your phone. And I know I've only had the opportunity of being at one live birth as a chiropractor, and that was life changing, of a really good friend of mine. And my sister-in-law has recently invited me, she is due any minute.
Oh, are you going to go?
I am. If I have a big event this weekend that I cannot reschedule. So who knows? I'm trying not to attach to it because this would be my first biological nephew. I have a niece on my husband's sister, her daughter. But this would be the first grandbaby of our, family. So I'm trying not to get attached to like being there and adjusting her and being the first one to adjust the baby. And I know it'll all work out. So we'll see. Maybe right now, as we're recording this, I wouldn't be surprised. That's how it works. I'm curious, Sarah, to shift gears a little bit. I know not only being a doula, but being a photographer in birth experiences has really grown to be one of your passions. And one of my things I love doing is actually like looking at that on Instagram, like people who have like reels or photography. Because I agree with you. I think birth is, when I experienced that with my friend, my world was changed. And I wasn't even the one giving birth, but I was part of it and so honored. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, how cool is the human body? So I'm curious, like, what got you into the photography, and what are some of the things that you really love about it? Like, what lights you up in that experience?
Yeah, I because it is such a profound experience to have beautiful, high quality images of that experience can really bring the visceral experience back for families. My goal as a photographer is to create images that you can hear and you can feel.
Oh yeah. I just got the chills.
I want you to see a still of somebody holding their baby for the first time, and just that shock on the face, and to know that they are inhaling deeply. Like, you can just feel what's going on in the room. And I think people deserve to see that. I think they deserve to see themselves in the power of going through a birth experience. And it's however your baby comes out is so powerful. If you are planned a C-section, or your labor takes a turn and you need a C-section, the moment of relief when your baby is finally skin to skin on your chest is the first moment of their life, and to have that moment captured, to have the way your partner's looking at you, to have the way your children are looking at you, to have, the blood running down your inside of your legs as you stand there and hold your baby because you just squatted them out in the shower. Like, you deserve to have that moment captured forever, not only just in your mind and body, but I think it also helps educationally and with inspiration of the other people that will be giving birth now and into the future. Yes. I mean, I don't know about you, but my family doesn't have oral tradition about birthing, and the women in our family. And even though, like, my great grandma gave birth to 4 sets of twin boys.
Which is like,
holy
what?
crap, right?
Yeah, who does that?
On a farm, right? In a little farm outside of Stillwater. And I want to know about that. And I want to see pictures of what the room looked like. And what did they have for machinery and technology? And I want her to tell me what that was like. Did she feel powerful? Did she feel scared? And without some of those tangible artifacts, it's just not the same. And so, I've been doing this for a little while. I had photographers at my birth. I actually had like 2 doulas and 2 photographers and a film crew, because I was just...
Of course you would.
Well, first of all, they're all my friends, because I'm a doula, but I just knew how important it was. And now my children watch their birth videos on at least an annual basis. They both know so much about birth and how the human body works. They're not afraid of it. They're really interested in it. And I think, wow, what a change if not only our own families can understand the history of birth in their families, but we can spread that out into culture, because there's so much fear around birth. There's so much privacy and kind of shame about like nudity in birth. And it's just... if you look at any great set of art, there is breastfeeding, there is birth, there is nudity. And I think your own birth story is part of that. And of course, I can shoot very modestly, and we do, and I get the greatest angles and all of that to make you look good and to feel powerful. But sometimes those raw moments are important. Like if you've had an outcome you weren't expecting, like one of my very first photography clients, she did not realize that her beautiful, empowered, special candlelit birth, that she would hemorrhage afterwards. And she specifically reached out afterwards, and I had sent her this beautiful gallery of pictures. And she said, "Do you have any pictures of the hemorrhage? I think I need to see it."
Yeah.
And as a photographer, I shoot everything. I don't always include everything in the gallery, but I try to get everything. And for her, she wanted to see it because she needed to integrate it back into her body. And so that's another reason I didn't even set out to do. But I think it's just powerful. I think people deserve to see it. Honestly, I look more at my birth pictures than my wedding pictures. Like wedding pictures, they're all staged, and it's nice to see family and everybody's posed. This just documents what happened. And it's really special.
It's so like raw and real and visceral. And I love what you said about, a person being able to look back at maybe some moments that felt fracturing and to view themselves from a different vantage point, which is a process of healing potentially what they perceive as trauma, to be like, oh my gosh, in that moment, I felt this, but look at this. Now I feel so much powerful. And I am so glad that you mentioned the normalization of that in the culture, because there is such, and again, I think it's changing. I think it's evolving, but I also wonder if that's just my consciousness, right? Like, is this me? Is this the world? It's the same, different, but normalizing birth, normalizing women or people in different positions that, we used to think is weird, but it's so normal in our biology. And when you can talk about that in your generations and in your family, I'm still learning stuff about my birth from my mom. Like, oh, I didn't realize that was a thing. Or even postpartum, right? Like what was the experience like that? I'm still learning things. And I'm a big fan of normalizing that, which is why, I created this podcast, is like, let's have conversations. Let's bring it to the table and talk about raw, real things that used to be very hush hush or under the table. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for, all the gifts, all the ways of bringing the gifts of birth into the world that you create.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor, and it just feels right. We call it mission sleep. Doulas do when we get home, because it's that hard sleep that you have, like a universal, a spiritual, like a density that weighs on you that helps you fall asleep because you knew you just did what you were meant to do on this planet. And I think a lot of doulas feel that way. And when you can have that kind of level of deep, satisfying sleep after a birth, you're in the right place.
I agree. You can give it all you got. And even though you're tired, you rest well. Anything else, Sarah, as we wrap up this conversation and podcast, that you want to embark any wisdom on our audience or listeners today? Where can people find you? First of all, I'll include it in the show notes, but anywhere they can find you.
My website is Sarah Branion Birth Stories. So definitely link it.
Yep.
I'm also on Instagram. I have some of my gallery there, but I think I would just implore on everybody that every birth, every family deserves a doula. And there are a lot of employers that are actually reimbursing or covering doula services, which is wonderful. This is the wave we need to see. So if you're in a position of power or influence, and you can encourage your companies to do that, to create some fertility benefits that are expansive, where people can choose what kind of support they want, that's helpful. But please reach out. If you are expecting, even if you're due next month, please reach out. We want every family to get a doula. And yes, if you think getting a photographer for your birth is a little extra and it's a little over the top, do it. You only get to do your birth once. And I think it's fantastic. And what's great about me is when you hire me, you can get both. You don't have to hire two people. And that's also really can be cost effective to have one person do both. And if I'm not the right doula for you, I know a right doula for you.
She's the real deal, y'all. What is your Instagram handle in case people want to?
It's just Sarah Branion Birth Stories as well.
Perfect. Yep. So for all of you listening, I include all the show notes and all the links in the show notes. So when this releases, you'll be able to connect with Sarah and connect with her in her world and all the beautiful things she's bringing to the planet. So thank you, Sarah, for your wisdom today. Thank you for being here on this podcast, and just super grateful for you and the work that you're doing.
Awesome. So nice to connect.
You too. All right, my friends. Again, this is the Project Lioness podcast. As always, peace, love, and keep inspiring. I'll see you at the next perfect time. Bye. Thank you for joining the Project Lioness podcast. Did you find value in today's episode? Help us impact the lives of others by sharing this podcast with someone you know who would resonate and benefit from the Project Lioness message. Excited to hear more? We invite you to subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. And we'd be so grateful for you to leave us a review about what you enjoy most, as well as what you'd like to hear more of. Thank you so much for all of your support. Sincerely yours in power, purpose, and play. Dr. Mel with the Project Lioness podcast. Keep rising, keep roaring, and keep inspiring.